Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the AI. I'm your host of DataDoc, and typically I focus on N8N agents and workflows. But in this video, what I wanted to do was something a little bit differently. What I wanted to do was kind of give my opinion of what is happening with AI and what will happen in the future. I'm going to shift to some of these podcasts where I'm giving my thoughts, and I'm going to bring in people that I'm going to interview and see what their opinions are. If you have anyone that you would like to be on the podcast or you want to recommend anyone, go ahead and comment them in the description below. But today I want to focus on what is happening with AI and what are all these influencers saying out there, right? So first I want to focus on what will happen and what I think will happen. I say think because no one can predict what's happening next, right? And right now I'm actually working on my doctorate degree, which I'm going to focus on emerging technology or disruptive technology, right? And in this disruptive technology, what I want to focus on is AI, cryptocurrency, and machine learning, and how that all merges together. But going back to the AI, what I want to say first is in scholarly literature, no one knows what's happening. No one knows what will happen, and there's no data points for what happens with AI. The only thing we can predict off of is past experiences with other revolutions like the Industrial Revolution and the cotton mill and all these different events that change history, but nothing is changing history like the way AI is kind of doing. So what does that mean, right? So I would urge everyone, if they can, to learn as much as they can about AI, because these people are coming out. And when I say these people, it's the AI elites that are saying, you know, you're not going to have to go to school anymore. We're not going to need doctors. We're not going to need lawyers, right? So those are the main industries, like those type of industries. And my argument against that is that they're probably trying to raise their prestige in the professions, right? So they're probably want to make the AI on the same status as a doctor or a lawyer. And traditionally, doctors and lawyers were high status individuals. So, you know, and traditionally, the data analysts or the data professionals and the AI professionals were middle people, and technology has started to rise up. And so now with the AI enthusiasts and themselves seeing themselves on the same level as a doctor or a lawyer, of course, it makes sense that they would say, we don't need doctors because we're going to replace you, right? And so that's a little bit arrogant on their side. But what I would say is that AI should increase the expectation of service that you receive, right? So in the past, when there were no computers, you had to do your taxes by hand, or you had to do it with some manual process, which incurred errors and it took time. Then the calculator came along and you were able to do it more accurately. So you charge a premium service, and for that service, you use a calculator and your taxes were done right. Then computers came along and you were able to do it with calculators and then submit it online. And there's all these different inventions that streamline the process, but overall elevated our expectation of service. So what I mean is that when you are going to school, it's my opinion that you had better become an expert in your field. You should know everything there is to know and really niche down into what you are an expert in. What that is going to do is it's going to allow you as the expert to identify when the AI is making up things, because I think that's always going to be a problem. AI is always going to be at this realm where it's going to hallucinate. It's going to work off bad data. It may work off data that isn't really what it's trained on, right? And you as the expert have to generally understand, why is it giving me this response and how can I get better, more accurate feedback, right? So that's one. The other aspect is you could go for a trade type of job and be a generalist. And this is not anything new. You're either super focused and specialized, or you're a generalist and cover a lot of different ideas. But the reverse is, if you become a generalist and you're not a doctor or an expert in your field, then you have to really lean in right now on how to use these AI tools. And what I mean by that is that you should be able to get the same results as the doctor who is an expert in the field in the AI, because you know how to use the AI better than everyone else. So you can get the doctor or lawyer or whatever that consultant is in that specialized field, you can turn the AI into that. The reverse is what I just mentioned, where you have the expert in the field. So these are the two things that I think people need to focus on. But, the ultimate philosophical debate comes into play is whose role is it right now to train the workforce? Right now, we see a change and shift in where the workforce is going to go. We see Microsoft laying off people, all these tech companies laying off people because they can use an AI system to do that role. And if that's happening, is that the company's job to train and prepare that person for their next role, since those roles are going to become obsolete? Or is that the person's job for understanding their profession and saying, okay, I'm in an industry that's going to be severely impacted by AI. So what should I shift to right now? So this to me is the big debate in the moment. So this needs to happen now. But more important, and what I think a lot of people are urging, is that we need regulation. And I don't think we need regulation, but we need policies passed by people in power. And what I mean by that is right now we're in an AI arms race, right? And if we're in this AI arms race, we have to compete with other nations to make sure our nation is the one on top. And as many people have suggested, if you are the person who is able to develop AGI first, or you are the person who is able to develop the best AI, and your AI is controlled by your country, then your country has the technology advantage and you are the superior nation, right? So this is what the analogy is. In the future, the nation that has the best AI is going to be the leading nation. And so we are in an AI arms race. And so what that means is we need to develop the best AI. And to be able to develop and create things, we don't typically need regulation. What we need, and what we need to force up, is policies pushed down from governments to incentivize the creation of good AI, of AI that's not going to impact humanity, that's not going to take jobs, although they are going to take jobs no matter what. And then once those AIs are created, then then the governments can create regulations that prevent bad habits from happening. So it allows us to keep innovating and competing with other nations. So, one of the big topics recently is that because of AI, we're going to enter a dystopia before we enter a utopia. And I agree with that, but I agree with that for different reasons than other people. So the reason I agree with it is that in any large change, in any change with people and behavior, people are generally resistant to the change, right? So that's one. And then the more extreme the change, the more resistant and the more turmoil you go through. So because we are re-evolutionizing the workforce and how work and routines have been over decades, it's going to be a drastic change. That's the first reason. The second reason is we had better get the timing right of the robotics and AI integration to the people being displaced. Because one of the predictors with this AI is that the high class people, or the people who earn the most, are going to continue to earn the most, but the wage gap is going to get bigger. They're going to begin to accumulate more of the wealth, and the poorer people, or the people who are lower class, and the middle class people are all going to become lower class. They're not going to make as much money, right? So all those people who are laid off by Microsoft may not be able to find an equivalent job to pay them the same. So their standard of living has to come down. So my biggest point is that if you have this wealth gap continuing to expand, what typically happens is people make irrational or emotional decisions, right? And so what we're doing is we're pushing a lot more people into the decision of fear. So all these people who are going to become the lower class people, who may have been the middle and higher middle class people, they're going to enter a fear of, I don't have my needs anymore, and there may be potential for unrest. So the more the wage gap separates us, the more unrest there can be. So continuing on into this, I think the dystopia is definitely going to happen. But what you should be afraid of is not the AI, it's more the people. And yes, the people, because as the AI is laying off people, and what I mean by that is the companies are laying off people and replacing them with AI, then there's a potential for unrest in those people to be able to revolt against whatever system it is. Now, it could be against the government, it could be against the employers, it could be just to revolt just because, right? So my argument is we need to invest in robotics. And if the robotics are going to replace people and police and all these things out there, then that needs to be in place before you start laying everyone off, right? Another big change needs to happen now is our standard of living. We need to address what is a high standard of living, what's normal, and what's low, right? What's lower class. The reason I say that is, I say this many times, is around Thanksgiving time, you will see there's many organizations that give away turkey, and you'll watch it on the news. You drive up, you get a turkey, you go home. That's great. I was a product of a family that received free turkeys on Thanksgiving, or else we wouldn't have been able to eat turkeys. So it's great that they do it. The challenge that I have is when the car that drives up is a very expensive Lexus, and the people have very expensive clothes and all these things on, but they can't afford their food. So we need to address how the standard of living is, because one of the arguments are that we're going to move into universal basic income. Now, I'm not opposed to universal basic income, but one of the challenges with this is if we don't set the expectation for what universal basic income will be and how we will live, people will have unrealistic expectations. So this is why I'm saying we need to address that now. And when you're ready to put in the universal basic income, then people will be able to comfortably live without the fear of losing everything. Because again, the number one emotion people are going to react from is fear. So if they're afraid, they're going to make irrational decisions. And those irrational decisions are typically emotional, and it could be unrest, right? So now going into how the UBI would work. So the UBI is very challenging because the US works off of a consumer economy. So what that means is the US, we typically consume goods, and that's how our economy rolls around. Well, to address this, universal basic income will provide a basic standard of living, right? And what the AI people are suggesting is that robotics and energy and all these things are going to be so abundant that we won't have to work. Well, I don't agree with that, because at some point someone's going to have to work. They're saying self-learning. How far is that out? I don't know. But at some point, what happens is people start getting laid off, and the people who keep the job continue to get paid more. So the wealth gap will continue to grow, right? And so if you want to have automation and you have AI automation, then maybe you get rid of 10 people and you keep one person who does the AI automation. But because, you're replacing 10 people, you could probably pay that AI automation person 5-person salary and still make a good income, right? So that's more evidence of why that wealth gap is going to continue to grow. And then when AI automation is out, then there's AI robotics. So now the person working on the robot, there's going to be this argument of robots working on robots. But then you run into this loop of robots working on robots working on robots. That's probably their full-time job, and they don't get anything else done. So, I don't believe in that. Everything is going to be ran by robots and AI. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but, I'm fully integrated into it. If you gave me a robot today and you gave me AI today, merge those two together, put it in my house, and I will be 100% in. So I'm not against it. I just don't believe it happening. Another reason I don't believe it to happen is this is the main one, right? If you look at any invention, these people, when I say these people, I'm saying the elites of, the AI, which is like a Sam Altman or, some Google developer or whoever you want to talk about, right? They're going to tell you, hey, listen, AI is like a computer. If you use AI properly, then you can be more efficient. which means you can do 40 hours worth of work in one day. But they're not looking at it from a business perspective. So now that business person is going to say, well, if I could do that, I will fire a bunch of people, take that one person and make them work the whole week so they can do everyone else's job. So my whole point to say that is I haven't seen a technology that gave someone time back and the business just kept paying them the same, right? So if you are saying you're going to make me more efficient, and through that efficiency, I'm going to work less, the company is not going to keep paying you the same. They're going to they're either going to increase your efficiency so you do double the work, or they're going to lower the amount of pay you have, right? And this goes into some of these scholarly articles out there that are talking about the transition between Industry 3.0 and this Industry 4.0, right? Industry 3.0 is kind of like what we're in now and what we're kind of used to, where we work a 40-hour week, whether we need to work or we don't work, we just work, right? And we do 40 hours and we're time-based typically. What Industry 4.0 generally leans on, and I can link the article in the description below, right? What that generally leans on is that we're going to move to a task-based solution where it doesn't matter how much time it takes me to do. For X task, you're going to pay me X amount, right? And so I could do one task, meet my standard of living, and then go to the beach or go to the park and do whatever I want to do. So this is generally what I think is going to happen. Now, the next thing that a lot of these people have addressed is, don't trust anything, right? And as I fully agree with that. I don't trust even what they're saying, right? And the reason I say that is because most people, we have bias, right? And even I have a bias. I like AI, so I'm fully into it, right? But some of these other people, when you hear Sam Altman talk, he's probably more for his shareholders than he is for having an ethical AI. So you have to understand that and listen to what he's saying. And also too, since there's an AI race, he's probably going to throw Grok under the bus or throw another AI under the bus. So take that with a grain of salt. The other aspect is when we do have these AIs, right? This is going to be the future. It's kind of going to work like a Google search engine. And why would it work like a Google search engine? Is because the way technology works and the way humans work is we have a product and then we make it better and we make it better and we make it better. We don't typically have a brand new product to something that already exists. So a ChatGPT, although you can use it to conversate with, to brainstorm, to be creative, there's many different applications for how you could use this. You can also ask it for recommendations of places to eat. You can ask it for all these locations of where you could go or whatever you want, right? So if you're asking it for this information and the AI has been trained to make the best health decisions for you, maybe when you do a search for food in your area, the AI is only going to recommend healthy options for you. Maybe there's a scenario in the future where the AI has access to your medical records and will restrict what you can see on the internet for food or things that may impact your health, right? So if for a scenario, there's a place that impacts your mental health, maybe you don't see that on your internet, but I see it on mine. And it's only through the AI that makes those decisions for us. So, that control is one aspect. And, the other aspect is everything in this consumer economy and this economy we live right now is driven towards money, right? Who can make the most money? And this is a capitalist society. We all know it. And so one of the things that, you can imagine is whoever pays the most will have the highest results. So, this is currently happening in Google, so it's nothing new. So why wouldn't it happen in the AI where if you didn't pay anything, you wouldn't even see it. It wouldn't even be recommended to you. And I'm sure that's happening now. I did a video where everyone was so in love with DeepSeek. It didn't perform very well, but the DeepSeek was very biased and deleted the responses to me. So, that video didn't get much traction, maybe because of the title, but you can find it in my description. It's a hard video to watch, but it's a very interesting video. One of the things that I did think through is the control and surveillance, right? So we talked about the control. How can you be controlled? We've mentioned some ways. We can also talk about like our perspectives, right? So like, where is this AI going to be trained and how is it trained on the culture you're in? But then so in the past, we talked about surveillance, right? And how can you be surveilled? In the past, there's so much information that it can't be processed. We don't have the computing power. We don't have the analytics to, review this. Well, if you have an AI system, it can surveil every move and where you're going to predict all these different things of what we thought it couldn't do because we didn't have the processing power. The AI could do it, so it's very interesting, the ideas of what the AI can do. So the next thing is, who makes this AI? So I want everyone to understand that there's not many AI companies out there. So there's a lot of AI companies, but those AI companies are really restricted to like 5 or 10 small companies that are making the AI and the AGI and the next evolution of it. Everyone else that you see out there, all these different ones, are just using one of their models. So what happens is you have the ability to download a model on the internet. It's an open source model. And if you download this model, you can train it and manipulate it in your own way. But basically, it's the base model of someone else's. Many of these aren't even competing. So what I mean by that is these 5 or 10 companies who are creating the AI, if we don't manage them, they're going to control everything. And there's nothing we can do about it. So that's going to be something that's interesting. So the next thing is, what is impacting you right now, right? So AI automation of white collar roles. And what I mean by that is all of these roles can be eliminated. They can probably be eliminated now, right? And you could probably get enough done with the AIs you have now. The challenge you have is the API keys fall off. The random nuances in keeping and maintaining the workflows are a little bit higher. But when that comes down, and with technology, it always comes down. And what I mean by down is it's easier to control, it's easier to maintain. These jobs are going to be erased. And what happens is what these AI systems can do is anything you can do on a computer, you can do with the AI. We know that now to be true, right? But the challenge that we have is the businesses. I don't think the businesses are going to adopt these right away. And one of the main reasons is because in business, you trade my labor for some profit that you get, right? And so what happens is you pay me $10 an hour, you charge the customer $20, and you keep 10. So your business keeps 10, I keep 10 for my hours work, and we charge 1 hour's worth of work to the customer, right? That's typically how it works. Well, if you get rid of your whole workforce, then there's no one to produce that labor. So now this is where I don't think the businesses are going to work for it, right? So I think the automation can be done now, but the integration piece is a little bit of a challenge. So once these deals are made with these companies to integrate across different platforms, I think that the white collar businesses are going to be gone. So, with this complete, I want to thank everyone for watching. If you made it this far into the video, thanks. Like and subscribe. Leave some comments. Tell me what you want me to focus on next. But I'm going to start creating these reaction videos and see what you think. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave some comments. And I look forward to our next conversation. Thanks. Bye-bye.